Hey, 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 welcome back to EquippingU podcast. This is season 9, episode 6. We're coming to you today from Columbus, Ohio, home of the Anthony Thomas Candy Company, where they make more than 50,000 pounds of candy each day.
That's a lot of candy.
That is a lot of candy. It's more than I can eat. I think I might gain 50,000 pounds if I ate that much.
Yeah.
So I'm Terry, Church Ministries Leader for the Alliance.
And I'm Alan, the Director of Development for the Eastern PA District of the Alliance.
And Alan, today we're going to talk about ESL, English as a Second Language. So here's just a brief little story on my end. I was pastoring in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and started seeing and having some contact with the Somalian community of that particular area, and always had a heart to try to do something to reach out to them in the love of Christ, but never quite figured out the way to do it. And after I left, our Spanish-speaking church plant, in cooperation with the Mother Church, Emmanuel Church in Mechanicsburg, began to do ESL and have seen tremendous gospel opportunities come through that, not only with Spanish speakers, but also with Arabic speakers and a variety of nations.
For sure.
So this seems like a great way for churches to reach immigrants and refugees.
It sure does. Yeah, I am familiar with the what's going on at Emmanuel since you left there, and I just talked to their director for that this year, and they have 30 Moroccans in their group this year. So that's pretty exciting stuff.
Fantastic. So this is such a great opportunity that we have added a staff member at the national office, director of Great Commission ESL. That's Bruce Lyman. And Bruce, we're glad to have you with us today and looking forward to a conversation about English as a second language.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, really glad to have you here. Grab yourself a Chick-fil-A Arnold Palmer. This one particularly is diet lemonade with sweet tea.
It makes no sense to mix diet and sweet tea, Terry.
It does not, but it sure tastes
So
good.
you could just have diet lemonade like me if you want.
Yes. I get to name the drinks here.
Oh, okay.
So grab yourself a Chick-fil-A Arnold Palmer.
Chief drink identifier.
Sit back, relax. Here we go. So, Bruce, again, great to have you with us, and appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today on EquippingU podcast. So, if you would, let our listeners get to know you a bit and give us the Reader's Digest version of your spiritual journey and your call to ministry.
Well, sure. Raised in a Christian home, but of a non-evangelical church. Really blew my dad out of the water when I didn't become a Christian when I was supposed to. But I got saved through Young Life in high school and pretty much grew in my relationship with the Lord, but never had anyone to disciple me, and just kind of here and there. But I went into the environmental field, ended up working with a hazardous waste company in Washington, and from that, God called me into the ministry, which I'm very thankful for at that point in time. And ended up at ATS and graduated 87. Ended up going right into a church plant, have been involved in 2 church plants since then. And,
That's great.
5 different ministries over the last 35 years or so.
Wow. That's encouraging. Always happy when I hear the words church plant together.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
That's good. So that's quite a journey. So tell us about a couple of leaders that have been really influential to you along the way.
Well, I would say when I got to seminary, again, I had never had anyone disciple me, and I ended up in a small group of Terry Wardle, who was teaching at ATS at the time.
Yeah.
And that was a revelation. That was really neat to meet with a couple of guys and talk through issues, and okay, this is why I believe that, and everything. So that was really good. The other one that I think has been influential, but just incredible support, was Tim Feather, who was the pastor at Cross Point as we began moving into ESL, and was just so encouraging and supportive of anything as we were moving into that. So provided a great atmosphere and a place to do that.
Wow, that's neat when people can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So talk to us, Bruce, about how you initially got involved in teaching English as a second language, or ESL, as we call it.
It's got a lot of different initials there. But basically, when my kids moved out of the house, my wife was interested in doing something different than childcare and kids' church. And she said, I want to do it outside the church. I said, that's even better.
Yeah.
So she found an ESL ministry in Akron. Had never heard of it or thought of it before, and I just started getting really jealous.
No.
She was working with these beautiful, really short little Korean women. Many were Christians, and so she was involved in that. The teacher went back for a PhD, and at that point I said, let me find a place for both of us. And we ended up working at a really large church that had ESL ministry. And when they changed their night to a different night, we ended up, well, we've got commitments on that night. So Tim Feather said, why don't we do it here? In Akron, we were from that church maybe 6 miles, not that far, but on the northwest side. And I said, Tim, there's nobody around here that doesn't look like me. He said, well, let's do demographics. Turned out there were 3,016 non-Anglo, non-African American within 3 miles of our church.
Wow.
See, I lived about 20 miles south, so it's like I didn't know the area that well. It's like, well, since then, God has brought 62 nations into the ESL ministry in the last 9 years.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's pretty
Only by
crazy.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is mind-boggling when you think about that. Who are we trying to reach through ESL, and what are we ultimately trying to accomplish?
Well, the ultimate accomplishment, the desire is to see people come to Christ.
Yeah.
And we are reaching anybody that doesn't speak English, which is a large number of people in America right now, whether they are here as refugees, whether they are here even as the Afghans and the Ukrainians that have just come in, whatever their reason, immigrants visiting, staying with family, many don't know English well enough to survive, no less thrive in America. So that's who we're trying to reach. And the goal is not just to see them come to Christ. Part of my heart and vision is to see them come to know Christ, be discipled, and go back to their homelands, many of which we could not go to because the persecution. So I'm excited about the day when that comes to be, when they can go under the radar back in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So ESL is a relatively new thing in terms of Alliance churches being involved in such a thing, but certainly ministry to immigrants and refugees is not. That's part of the history and heritage of the Alliance. So kind of tie that all together. How does ESL fit into the history and heritage of Christian Missionary Alliance?
Well, we were founded by an immigrant from Canada,
Yeah.
A.B. Simpson, but his desire to meet the nations in New York City led him to reach a lot more people than just the missionaries that were going in and out. And I don't think he knew Italian when he connected with that 100 or 120 Italians on the docks of New York City, but there had to have been something going on there. There's a contemporary of his, I don't know the name, in Chicago at the same time that A.B. was really good friends with, who was doing English classes. I don't have anything that says Simpson was, but it was really important as you're meeting people from other countries to help them get a grip, and the jobs that come through English were really important. So it goes way back, and on the mission field, it's part of the bread and butter in many places from the beginning of trying to connect with people in a community.
Yeah, it can give them a leg up if they know English, I guess, on the mission field, and history is serving them in a way that's really practical for them. Yeah. So I only speak English. Terry claims to speak Spanish, but most people know the reality of that is not true.
I didn't say I spoke Spanish, Alan. I said I'm fluent in Spanish.
Right, fluent in Spanish. Right, right. Like you said, you're fluent in Spanish. So how can I be an ESL teacher? I mean, honestly, what are the key traits you're looking for an ESL teacher?
Speaking English is really important.
I can do that.
There you go. But you don't even have to be
Terry's
a native.
working on that.
He's working on that. It's not critical that you be a native English speaker, I've been working with many Hispanic churches recently, and the second generation and others that are coming in have a good handle on English are doing great jobs. But the main things are you need to love Jesus and love people, and I think being curious about other cultures is really helpful.
Why is curiosity helpful?
Because so many folks coming in are interested in learning about American culture, and rather than just dogmatically say, this is what we do, this is what we do, it's like, well, in your country, what do you guys do? Do you have this kind of ceremony? Do you have baby showers? And, oh, okay, why not? Those kind of things give a back and forth between us. So we are learners as well as teaching.
Okay. So the learning posture really helps to, how does that help? Does it kind of break down walls, or what does that do?
Breaks down walls. It gives you conversation, which is not in the book. And when you begin talking about their homelands, they have a chance to share something more that they know and nobody else does. So it really helps open up relationships and conversation.
Yeah.
Just a curiosity follow-up question on that. Speaking of curiosity, do most people come to you not speaking a word of English or speaking a little bit of broken English? What's the typical characteristic of a student in that particular
There is no typical.
Okay.
But if you are, many of our Lynns churches are working with refugee populations. With refugee populations, it's a lot closer to zero, or really, really low levels.
Okay.
There's anything from intro, which would be almost no English at all, to level 5 and advanced for college students or those that are trying to perfect their English. But it all depends. You never really know when you start a ministry what level students you're going to get.
Yeah. So you've been involved in this for a while.
We've been doing this, been doing English at our church this is the 10th year.
Wow. So tell us a couple of stories that have emerged out of your ESL.
You know, we love stories at EquippingU.
We
so
do.
Bring
Oh
it.
my goodness.
Bring
this,
it, Bruce.
This is great.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Plenty of time.
Oh, one of our favorite sisters in the Lord is Lynn, and she's from Vietnam. And if you remember back to the days of the boat people, she was one that actually got 5 boats going and people on them and paid for them and everything. She got arrested every time. She ended up finally getting out and came to America, married, and she and her husband had properties in California. Once she had a son, he pretty soon divorced her, and so she was on her own. She ended up in Akron, Ohio. I don't know how she got here from California, but she did. And she was sitting in a ladies' spa in a YMCA, and a woman very, very lovingly said, "I can tell you've been in America a long time, but you speak really bad English." That's not a way to talk to people. But
How
she
to win
was
friends and influence
Oh my
people.
goodness. She was pretty thick-skinned by then. And the gal said, "You should go to Cross Point Church." Well, she came. And here she is interacting in our classes, typically 2 hours a week, a morning or evening. And she sees this gal, Carrie, and they look at each other. It's like, do we know each other? Well, they've been living within 8 houses of each other for like 15 years.
Wow.
But Lynn was off on a cul-de-sac, and there was not that kind of connection. And it turned out they became the best of friends. Lynn started coming to our classes, and she loved it. On Easter that year, we showed the Jesus video for children, which is a terrific tool for ESL, even better than the 2-hour word-for-word from the Bible. Jesus video, or whatever they call it, DVD. Anyway, she saw that. We did it in 12 languages that year.
Wow.
And it was neat. There was a map. We had Hungarian here and Portuguese. And she was the only one in Vietnamese. So she and Carrie sat in the office there and watched the video. And she'd never heard this story before.
Wow.
And it just really touched her. So we invited all the students to come on Easter. That was the class before that. She came on Easter, and didn't become a Christian then, but she came every week. She started being one of our best ambassadors for ESL, wherever she was. She knew how to invite somebody to come to classes because she knew from her experience how good it was. Summer came on, and over the summer, we usually stop classes because teachers need a break. And so towards the end of the summer, getting into September, she texted me and she said, Bruce, can I talk with you? I said, sure. She came into my office. She said, Bruce, I'm going back to Vietnam. I want to bring my mom here. She's legally blind and she's almost deaf. She just lives with my brother, does nothing. I said, well, that's great. So she said, would you pray for me? And so I prayed, that she'd have results there. Again, she wasn't a believer. She heads out. We got one email, some connection in about a week. And she said, things are looking good. We're going to go to the doctor. Then we'll be home. Well, 2 weeks went by and heard nothing. I finally got a phone call on a Sunday night, and Lynn was really broken up. And I said, what's wrong? She said, can I come and talk with you? So she came on Monday morning, and she said, Bruce, they found spots on my mom's lungs. So tuberculosis. Wow. I come back to America. My son, who I have been putting through college, is dropping out. My ex-husband's been stealing all my properties in California. I just can't carry all these burdens. And it wasn't me, because I'm not that smart. The Holy Spirit whispered, you don't have to carry them. And I began to tell her, you've heard about Jesus. You've heard what he's done for us. But he came to carry those burdens and to help us through those things. And I asked her if she wanted to trust Jesus and become a Christian. She said yes. And I never do a pray after me when someone is coming to know Christ. And it's amazing how often they say things that I never told them that. And that's beautiful work of the Holy Spirit. So when she was done praying, she opened her eyes, and it's almost like her shoulders were higher, like a burden was lifted. And I said, and she was smiling. I said, what? She said, I'm not worried about my mom or my son or my ex-husband stealing my properties. I said, that's pretty amazing, just in. So she comes to class the next morning. I didn't tell anybody, which is something really important as people are having spiritual progress. You keep that really tight, that word never gets out. So several of the teachers came to me after class. Bruce, what happened to Lynn? What do you mean? Bruce, what happened? I don't. Well, she accepted Jesus yesterday, but I don't think she knows what that means. And she didn't. So, but she started coming to class. I did a class on Sunday morning, asking questions, discipling her, helping her understand what it meant to be a Christian. And she's been living in California again for, I think, 6 or 7 years. She Zooms into the ladies' Bible study for ESL women every single week. There's always Lynn popping up on the screen there.
That's awesome.
And she just loves the folks. And even having a Bible study with women from ESL is a pretty amazing thing, too.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So she is a really, really wonderful story of how God worked through a hard word in a ladies' sauna.
Go figure. Go figure. That's great. I love to hear stories like that.
There's another one in process.
By all means, bring it.
Go for it.
Because we are in Akron, Ohio. I call that the rubber capital of the universe, because Bridgestone, Firestone, Goodyear, all the tire companies started there. Didn't realize Bridgestone was a Japanese company as we started getting ESL students, wives of husbands who were here working with American engineers for 2 or 4 years. And I think we've had almost 60 women or husbands have come to our classes over the last 9.5 years.
Wow.
Because where they live in Japan is very close to where our field office is. And we are now trying to connect them with the international workers that are there.
Wow.
But I had been praying a long time about trying to connect with the men, because the men will come for ping pong and badminton tournaments, but that's about it. Badminton. They love badminton. So good times with that before COVID, but we're going to do it again. So we ended up, I just started asking Carrie, who are the women that are in the Bible study? And she gave me a list, and so I started praying. It's like, okay, maybe one of these husbands would be open. And I started meeting with a guy named Masa. His wife was Aya, and I had already fallen in love with their son, Sosuke. And I used to have this little band of 2-year-old Japanese boys that would follow me around ESL, and we'd play games and throw them up in the air, and they just loved it.
That's awesome.
It's before I had grandkids, so now I'm getting, it was like a prequel to that.
Yeah,
practice.
I get it.
Right.
I get it.
But so we're talking and having lunch at a Subway, and I said, would you be interested in studying the Bible? He said, well, I was going to ask you that. Wow, okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And that was as COVID was starting up, so we ended up going the whole summer, meeting in a county park with mosquitoes and all. And Sosuke
Nice.
would come and do his stuff over on the side, and then we went to Zoom, and that went for about a year. Went through a terrific tool, going through the whole life of Jesus in 24 sessions.
Yeah.
It was just great, and talked about a lot of things, and finally came down. It's like, what is keeping you from that decision? Boom, ancestor worship, really fast.
Wow.
Okay, which gave me something I need to really learn about.
Yeah.
They had a second child, and Yuta was born, and that just kind of took everything off the pages for a while, and I began praying, God, is this a relationship? Is this a person of peace that I need to continue to pursue?
Yeah.
And with Japanese culture, they don't usually invite you to things, and you need to realize that's the culture. So I was praying, and I was getting really disappointed because I really missed time with them. I really loved them as a family. And I finally reached out to Aya, the wife who was coming to our classes, and she said, I was going to ask you this week if we could start Bible study again.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was really wonderful. So we've started that up again, and I'm real excited about where that's going to go. We're just going through some of the narratives of the Christmas story right now.
Nice.
And bit by bit, it takes a long time because most Japanese have never heard the name of Jesus, never seen a Bible, have no idea what Christianity is.
Wow. My goodness.
So lots of opportunities, but long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, so what does a church want to do? A pastor or a church leaders listening, and they're interested in starting an ESL in their church, or maybe cooperating with a few churches in their area to do it.
Yeah.
What steps do they need to take?
The best step would be to contact us here at the National Office, Great Commission ESL. 5 years ago, I started traveling and teaching churches how to teach English as a second language. And we've gotten about 50 churches in the country started. Not all Alliance, many different denominations, but it has been an incredible blessing to see churches get going and started with people that have never taught anything in their life.
Yeah.
Because the 11-hour workshop that we train, actually we have 8 other trainers now that can also travel. And when you have a cooperative, you have either several churches working together, or I'm beginning to talk with district superintendents about hosting an event that several churches could come to cut the cost down.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But that is a 11-hour workshop, and I do coaching before the workshop and after to get you launching well.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to hear the stories that come out of English ministries that are happening all around the country.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Love it.
So we're always interested in the price tag.
Oh, the price tag.
So how much money and how many people will it take to run an ESL ministry?
I'm guessing it's not Terry's favorite price, which is free.
Yeah, it's not quite that. Yeah, it's a little bit above that. But the number is amazing. All you need are 7 people that are interested in teaching English to be trained. That way you have 1 director that oversees things, and then 3 classes with 2 trained teachers.
Okay.
Because the classes will grow as soon as you start, and this friend, and they invite family and all those different things there. The cost is about $2,000 for a workshop, that includes airfare and honorariums for the trainers, the coaching, and everything else that relates to that. We have been doing ethnic churches at a discount, which has been an awful lot of fun, working with so many Hispanic churches in the last year here. Then there's a charge per person. Some of the churches pay for that, and some of the churches have the individuals pay for that, the resources they receive and the training, learning how to share their faith, their story in 3 minutes, because that's all you have with a student that doesn't understand English very well. So
that's great. So churches can get in touch with you to get something scheduled, and working together is a great option.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I am always in the process, when a church wants to schedule something, of connecting with other Alliance churches in the area through the district, which cuts the cost down for everybody that way.
I'm honestly really excited that this is becoming part of the national office team, the church ministries team, because it's hard to fathom a more, I hate to say easy because nothing's easy, but a more clear way to reach people from different cultures than to actually help them learn the language that is so beneficial to them, serve them in a way that is so practical for them, that makes their life so much better. So just repeat for our listeners here how they get in touch with you to get the process started.
Again, you can contact National Office. My new email is Lyman, Lymanb, at cmalliance.org. I think I got that right.
You did.
Yep.
You did.
And I'm happy to connect and talk with you and see where that might go.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all you're doing, Bruce, and hope that folks out there will take advantage of the opportunity to connect with you.
I'm looking forward to that.
So, Alan, have you ever thought about learning English?
Some say I should. Some say I should.
Just curious.
I took phonics, though, as a young child. So
That's good. Yeah. That's good. That's a good first step for you, Alan. So, really great ministry opportunity, and so embedded in the heritage of our Alliance history, what Bruce shared with us today. Yes, A.B. Simpson. Yes, the 1970s when Southeast Asians are coming and we're helping to resettle them. Ministry to immigrants and refugees is part and parcel to who we are as Christian Missionary Alliance. And I don't know of a better way to reach out to these folks than to do it ESL in your local church.
Yeah, like I said just a few minutes ago, I can't fathom a more clear way to serve the people, the world that is coming to us.
Yeah.
So
I forgot to tell you that it's more fun than I've ever had in my life.
Fantastic. That's a great way to wrap it up, Terry, don't you think?
It is a great way to wrap it up.
Have fun and serve Jesus at the same time.
And what a combination.
Yeah.
So next time on episode 7, we'll be with Ron and Lisa Ramsey, co-directors of C&MA here at the national office. And so look forward to that opportunity. But meanwhile, EquippingU podcast listeners, keep the faith.